5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to We the People with John Allen. I have my guest Aman Sadai here today. He came in and he was gracious enough to talk to us about not just his book, about the experience and share some wisdom and insight regarding some very serious issues in our mindset regarding how we view our government, how we should be viewed by them, how we should strive despite all odds and obstacles being in our situation. And no matter what our circumstances, we don't just sit around and hope for something good about it. We take action, and then after that, we pray that our actions are accepted and our efforts are accepted, and we didn't make any errors in them either. So with that being said, I want to discuss something that came to mind that I thought I was going to share with the show. And I was saving this for another episode because I was going to elaborate on it, but I think it's such an important issue. And when Ahmad was sitting here explaining to me about the situation in Palestine prior coming to the States, it made me want to talk about this right now. It was a clinical psychologist discussing some studies that were done regarding charity and giving away things, right? And what the guy did, he intentionally gave away $100 to a high-income person while they're sitting or they're accompanied with another high-income person. And when he gave him the $100, he turned around and asked him what was, it's kind of like a trick question because he didn't know he was going to ask him anything like that, but it's for the study that they don't know they're participating in. He said, well, how much you going to give your friend? He said, oh, I'll give him $40, right? And most people, they offered like half or to share half because I guess the money was free. However, despite the wealth of the two people, they accepted the money and they was good-natured about it. So he went and experimented, and he did it with people of different incomes. And the lower the person was in the income bracket he did it with, the more discord came up about the money. All right. And so on the surface, he kind of thought for a minute it's not a big deal because they have. But one of the things that he was perplexed about that he found that was interesting, he had handed $100 to someone, and by them having almost nothing, they couldn't afford to just automatically split with somebody else that's just standing there. So they say, well, I'll give you $10 of it. And the other person that had nothing at all would argue with them over the free $10.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was one situation where the person said, well, he gave him close to half, 40. He say, well, you should split with me because it was free. And he say the thing that really shocked him about that, when he gave that money away, he called the other person over. So he didn't even know he was receiving something, didn't even witness the gift. And so anyway, at the end of the day, at the study, he noticed that the people who had the least were the least grateful when you attempted to help them. And they felt subconsciously entitled for no other reason that the clinical psychologist can rationale that simply because you have more, you have a duty to make sure I have, without regard to what you're doing to make sure you have. And so I want us to get away from that thinking, whether it's subconscious or intentional. The other thing I want us to recognize in our public policy, I noticed that our president forgave a bunch of student debt. And that's good, but I noticed we continue to have policies that I call the sandwich theory. And what I mean by that is you're starving because you've been marginalized, you haven't been having access to good training, education, you've been made to live congested in an area where it's not mixed income, so you don't have a lot of opportunities. There's no one in your community for you to sell goods and services to, even if you had them, because they group all the poor people together and create these artificial boundaries. So I show up and I pretend I'm the good guy and I give you a sandwich. And you like me because I'm not hungry at the time. And then you go to the restroom and you defecate the sandwich and you're hungry again. Or you work and you get hungry again. So I call it the sandwich theory. I look at the student loan debt situation, the PPP money, and a couple of other things the same way. I'm not adverse to them, but I'm wondering, when are we going to address giving an opportunity or giving away something that increases and produce and sustain a respective economic situation, as opposed to giving away the sandwich just to eat for a day. So with that being said, I ask you guys to think about that. We're getting close to the end of the show. We're not at the end yet. I'm still inviting people to call in. I'm gonna look over here on Facebook and see if we have any comments or questions. And then I'm gonna ask Iman to highlight again how you can buy a copy of his book. Go right ahead, Iman.
Yeah. Amazon, online, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart. It's everywhere online. If you do get the book, I would really appreciate just the honest review on what you thought of the book. I never want any bogus or lie. They got companies that give us $100, we'll give you 1,000 reviews. How am I supposed to look myself in the mirror and I know I got fake reviews?
Yeah.
But I like to have what you think is important, and that's basically it about both books. But I'll tell you what, you'll learn a whole lot, you'll see a whole lot, you'll understand a whole lot by both books. I'm not Shakespeare, but they are good books, and they have a volume of information, and it could give you like an understanding. Sometimes when you think you really have it hard, you look at the next person, and like the thing with the shoes. We were talking about the shoes when he was saying one had holes in his shoes, the other one didn't have feet. You really realize that somebody could have probably had it a hell of a lot worse than you.
Okay. And last Sunday at Foodies, my restaurant, it's not open now, my carryout, we did a voters registration drive. And I went out and I knocked door to door and I asked people to register to vote. And I want to thank all those who did register to vote. And the people shared some interesting comments with me and things like that. And one of the upcoming shows, I plan to talk about that. But if there's anyone within the sound of my voice that's not registered to vote, you should get registered to vote. And I'm going to tell you why. Whether we have adequate or good candidates, or what you define as good candidates placed in front of us or not, the reason why you should register to vote, if you're not registered to vote and poised to pick a candidate, you can't threaten the existing candidates about your vote and ask them for anything. Exactly. So, and I'm just going to be real with you. I don't care how sweet and mild-natured any politician is you select. If you don't vote, you don't count. You don't count. So if we had 2,000 potential votes and only 25 people voting for me, guess what? They get in the front of the line to get their issues addressed because those 25 are voting, despite the fact there was 2,000 potential voters. And then you begin to say, man, a lot of the issues get addressed kind of one-sided. That's because we got one-sided showing up to the polls and we got one-sided participation. So you guys, I know it's hard, it's difficult for me too, but you for all of us. But we have to vote and we have to think about how to develop candidates too. And candidate development, we're going to talk about that in another show. But it started even with our existing candidates because they got an old Middle Eastern saying. It says that the people get the leaders they deserve and the leaders get the people they deserve.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening right here.
Exactly. And I will tell you this. We lost half of our country in 1948. And when they went to Theodore Roosevelt, they said, one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said to him, wait a minute, you're going to sign half of Palestine away to these European, what about the Arabs? The rest of the Arabs? You know what his answer was? Yeah. He said, no, my constituents are Arab.
Right. So nobody.
So if you don't, if they feel that you are not involved in having them elected, you got nothing coming. You got nothing.
That's just the real.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's just the way
it
is.
And that's documented that Theodore Roosevelt said that. None of my constituents are Arab, and he had no problem signing the country away. So I lost my country because he didn't have anybody that could talk up for us within this political system. So if you don't get involved, you're cut out of everything. You don't think you're going to get anything.
All right. And the views expressed by the host and callers of this show are not necessarily the views of WLTH management, owners, advertisers, and sponsors. And I think we said enough. And I appreciate you guys for listening. And I want you to listen in next Thursday. We're going to have another author come up, the author of Slay the Dragon, The Iron Collar, Broken Dolls. And it's going to be author Susan D. Peters going to be on the show. We also have coming up attorney Justin Harris is going to be on our show. And we're working on getting Lake County Prosecutor Bernard Carter to come on because I was floored by his comments at the public safety hearing. And I'd love him to come on and elaborate on that. Until next week, next Thursday at 6, this is John Allen for We the People.
Give it me.